So good evening to all the viewers, and this is Aditi Singh, and today we have with us for TED Weekend Conversation the author Indranil Mukherjee, and he has written 3 books, The Recale and also Off the Pages. So sir, we are glad and very honored to have you, and we have this TED Weekend Conversation in association with Ahmedabad Book Club and the Eternal Quest. And we are very honored to have you, and thank you for sparing such valuable time of yours. So, sir, we are very inquisitive to know about you. So, why don't you tell us something about you, that how you started from being a software guy to an author? Like, how did that happen, and how did you really left that profession that you had, like in IT, in data, and you became a full-fledged author? So, how was that transit, sir? So, do tell us about that.
Sure. You see, I started working initially as a software teacher. So across my entire working life, I've had several such changes.
Yes, sir.
I started working back in '91, and I was teaching software in this company called NIIT. So I was doing that, enjoying myself, but writing was something that I was always very fond of. And in fact, I was still in school when I had written my first story, complete story. You know, I had in my mind 1,000 stories, but there was one story that I had completed, which was from the first page to the last page with a proper climax. So that was something which had really been very satisfying for me. And eventually, while I was working as a software teacher, eventually I got married, and then I had a son. And it was while he was growing up in his early years, I used to tell him stories. I mean, every parent does that. So I used to do that, but I found them to be extremely stimulating for myself as well. You know, I could let my imagination run wild. And at the same time, it also gave him a lot of fun. And it's so on, and it went on like that. I kept changing my jobs. I moved from teaching to mainstream software. It was in development work. I was doing that. I was traveling, and I was meeting so many kinds of people. So all those things were there in my mind. You know, they were taking root. And there was a time I thought that I should start writing, because that was something which gave the most satisfaction. And then it so happened, there are 2 separate things that happened. One was sometime around 97, 98, when I challenged myself to write something funny for 3-4 pages. So that's how the idea of Off the Pages came, where there was no plot. It was just a few pages that I wrote, and I quite liked the thought. But then it went into hibernation. In 2012, I met somebody who had retired from the Indian Railways in 2011. And this gentleman was a relative, and he had retired as a station superintendent in Bihar. And while we were having lunch, he was narrating a few incidents, because I was, kind of pressing him to tell a few of his stories. And then it came across that those incidents were just too impressive and inspiring to just be, anecdotal, hearing over a meal, gappe maar liye, waisa nahi. They were stories which had a moral, and there was a lot of learning to be had from these stories. So I told him that I'll write this book. So I started writing this book sincerely in somewhere around 2016. I had spent a lot of time in these 4 years between 2012 and 16 in getting the material from him over interviews, on calls and personal meetings. And in late 2016, I started writing. Then it struck me one fine day that I didn't want to, waste my time doing a software job, which involved a lot of travel. It involved a lot of jig, and I said, to hell with this. I will go to writing, which was the one thing that really gave me pleasure. So I discussed with my wife and I said, this is it. I'm doing this. And then I quit my job. And this was in Chennai. And I now live in Delhi. So this is where I was before I went to Chennai for that job. And then we drove all the way from Chennai to Delhi. And on the way that, we discussed these things, I thought about those stories and all. So I started writing the full thing in early 2017. And that was how the transition happened, really. I mean, it was something which was happening for a very long time. And it was not sudden, one sudden day I decided, this is what I want to become a writer. It was there in the mind and it took some time to come about.
So, sir, like whatever you told, I can really figure it out that you had an epiphany moment when you realized that you really need this transit from being a to a full-fledged author. And also, sir, I've read about you that beside from writing, you are also very keen towards reading and you love traveling and you are very curious about what is happening now and then. And sir, also I read about your books that your first book got published in October in 2018, The Station Master. And has also now it is released in Bengali by one of the biggest publishing companies in Bengal. So how do you feel about that, sir? And also your third book, Off the Pages. Now, when I read about it, I really came to connect it with that Sherlock Holmes story, where Sherlock Holmes can really call upon the writer, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, that why he gave him such a life and why he has been put into a detective in the book. And the same happens with your third book, Off the Pages. So, sir, are you inspired by that book, or like what is the real thing that really inspired you to write your third book, Off the Pages?
So, long time ago, I was still in college, I think. I had seen a movie in Hindi, a Hindi movie, and I just remember K.K. Raina. Yeah. I don't know if you know this actor, very famous, very good actor. K.K. Raina, I think, if I remember rightly, this is like 30, maybe 40 years ago. And this writer has come, this character has come to meet with the author, but it was a very serious conversation, and there was a lot of angst in that man. I just remember that part. One character has come to meet the author. And while I was, remember I was telling you that in 97, 98, I was trying to write some funny few pages and all that. So as I was developing that plot, this was much later, in 2010 or so, I was trying to develop this plot. And I said, let's have that. I mean, something which I had there in my mind about a character who comes to meet the author. So what would the purpose be of such a meeting? It would definitely be something that he is unhappy about. It wouldn't be something that he's happy and therefore he has come to. I mean, it wouldn't really happen. I thought it would be more natural if the person is disgruntled and he wants to come and meet the author and say, why on earth did he give me such a life? You could have given something else to me. You could have made my life pleasant. Why? Imagine Sherlock Holmes goes to meet Doyle and he says, why do you say that I smoke cocaine? Yeah? I mean, why would I do that? Why don't you give me something else to do? So I said, that let's have this character come and meet the author and tell him, I'm sick and tired of the violence that you've given me. And I need a change in life. And the author is flabbergasted. I mean, the author is making money from these books. And if he changes the character of the book, how will he sell his books? So he's also in a quandary. So what does he do? And while all this is going on, the character then springs another surprise and tells the author that he is in love with a character who's from another series of books this author writes. Oh. Okay? So now the author is in double problems. So because this girl that he is in love with, she herself loves somebody else from the set of characters in the romance series. So this author character, the author is also a character in the book. So this author character has started getting success, got success writing these detective action novels. But he got sick and tired of all the violence himself. So he said, I will write some romance series, so I'll get some catharsis. So he also writes these romance series. Now, it so happens that these characters have all come to life. Now, if you accept that part, then you realize that this character, they can be going about in the real world as well. So this character has met this girl from this other life, and he says that I want to, you fix her up with me. He tells this detective character tells the author, and the author says, look, this girl herself is in love with someone else. How can I do that? How can I uproot her life? So that's how all that problems occur. And meanwhile, because of the violence, this guy is the detective is being chased by the major villain, who is making life miserable for this guy. So they are both attacked by the goons of the villain. So they have to run, they have to hide, and then they go to this place where this girl is also there. So the complexities increase, and how they solve this problem. So it's a lot of action and fun and all that. So essentially, it came from this one small scene I remembered from this movie, of a character coming to life and meeting the author. So that's the wellspring.
So like all of the stories that you have written has been inspired from your life. Like the station master, you met a man who was really a retired station master and you wrote about that. Again, this book of the page is inspired by a movie that you saw. And so also you've written a novelette. So you have written novels and you have written a novelette, a collection of short stories, right? And you are very much into anecdotes, and you, as you said, that you loved telling anecdotes and small stories to your son. So sir, there is a rapid fire question for you. So can you just tell a 2-sentence horror story? Like, since you are very much into anecdotes, so just tell us a 2-sentence horror story.
Okay.
Yes,
all right, so I'll just narrate it. Okay.
Awesome. Yeah.
So I finished my dinner and I went to the balcony to smoke a cigarette.
Okay.
It was all dark, and there was just one light casting a little fall of light, gloomy light on the road. And I saw, to my horror, a small baby, no more than 2 years old, walking on that road, all by itself.
Okay. Yeah, sir, I really got scared. That was very scary indeed. I just said it in a sarcastic way, but you made it up right now. So it was very impromptu. It was a very nice short story, I can say. And so I would like really ask one genuine question, that since you professional authors and writers, so have you ever suffered from writer's block, as we all say that there is some writing blockage? After writing so many things, now you get a creative blockage, right? So have you suffered from that, sir? Like any time?
Sure. I mean, yeah, it happens, and I don't know any particular way that you can actually overcome that very easily. It takes a lot of effort. You have to really work at coming out of that writer's block. Currently, right now, I am in a writer's block. So okay. I am struggling with successfully taking my new story forward. So there are a lot of reasons for that. The main reason, which is hindering that writing process, is to do with, I can't decide whether I should go one way or I should go the other way, because I've already traveled one way a few chapters, and now I feel that doesn't look very good. So I want to come back from there and go forward in another way. But there are elements in that way which I still want to sustain here, because those elements are good, but not the narration. So I want to move the narration over here, and I can't make up my mind. And it has been going on for some time now. So yeah, that.
Yeah. Yes, sir. You were saying something?
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying that this is a fairly common thing for, I'm sure, for every writer. And my favorite author is P.G. Wodehouse. And I know from reading about him that he used to work every day, about 8 or 10 hours every day. And by longhand, he would, write longhand. So he made it a compulsive habit. 7 days a week, every day he would work for 8 hours or 10 hours. So that kind of discipline is another thing which I lack. I can't, work consistently. Ek to corona, and uske upar you have to, prepare for that. You have to deal with the corona crisis, all that. But I'm not blaming Corona. I'm not as disciplined an author as my idol is. I wish I was, but that's a reality.
Yeah. So having said about that, you are hindered by something or the other. So can you tell us that what you're currently working on and what is going to be your next book or next project? And what can
Sure.
we? Yeah. So what are you working?
Okay, let me tell you. I have been trying my hand at various. Everything is fiction. I mean, even the Station Master, which are all the 10 stories are true stories. They have actually happened just the way that they have been narrated. But according to the classification, it is still fiction. So all my stories are fiction, but the subgenres are a little different. So the subgenre of the novelette Rekill is about an assassin. The subgenre about the Station Master is real life short stories of the Station Master. And the subgenre of the off the pages is action humor. Okay. So the fourth one that I'm currently working on deals with terrorism. So it's a far more serious topic. And here too, there is a lot of material in terms of not story, but how these operations work, how the special forces work. I have got the material from a retired special forces officer. He was very happy with my book, Station Master. So he said, I want you to write some of the stuff that I have done. So he has shared a lot of material with me, about 100 pages worth of material. So I have got the story, I've got the plot. Now I have to, plug them into making it a weightier novel. Yeah. The working title of the book is 1,000 Cuts.
Okay, sir. So, you have given much spoiler for your next book, and we cannot talk much about because it would come.
No.
Yeah. So, since you have written 3 fictional books and you really believe into fiction inspired by real life incidents, so sir, can you tell me that if given a chance, you have to travel any fictional book, where would you love to go, and which character would you love to be a part of, if given a chance? So what would be?
See, I have already told you who my favorite author is.
Yeah, that I know. Yeah.
So the particular period and the particular set of books that Woodhouse wrote were all about humor. And in his line of writing, he had a very idyllic world where nothing bad happens. Everyone, there are bad things, but those bad don't qualify to be bad in real life. They're very lightly bad, if you understand what I mean.
Yes, sir.
Everything is jollity and fun, and that's what I would like to get into, be a part of, which is like very early 20th century in England and parts of it in the US, where these characters live and do what they do. And it's a world which will, it's like being in a very frothy, happy movie. So there's a lot of happiness in that. So I would love to be part of that.
And so, since you are also from Bengal, you are a Bengali, right? So, sir, are you really inspired from Bengali literature or writings from Rabindranath Tagore? You must be grown up reading those stuff. So, you really got inspired from that also?
To be honest, I haven't read as much Bengali literature as I ought to have. My entire family is a family of readers. So my parents used to be voracious readers. And that's how I became a reader. But unfortunately, I haven't read much of the Bengali literature. I have read a lot of Bengali literature in the original Sharadindu Bandyopadhyay. So if you have heard of Byomkesh Bakshi, there was a Hindi movie made.
He was a detective, yeah.
Correct, he was a detective. So I find his stories to be amazingly well crafted, very intricate, and extremely well written. And they were all written in the late 19th, early 20th century, very old, but extremely well written. So that I've read a lot of, and there are many others that I'm currently also reading. The richness of Indian literature, not just in Bengali, but in every other language, is something that I haven't explored much to my embarrassment. I need to read more.
Yes, sir. And like, sir, having said about Bengali literature, so can you like, since you know Bengali, so can you just narrate like few sentences from any of your favorite Bengali poem or any of your favorite Bengali piece of literature? That would be a surprise for the audiences as well, sir.
Wow.
Yes,
Then I can't read it. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll read out a small passage from a book.
yes,
I'll just share that with you.
Yes, sir.
So it's this book. This is out of print, no longer available, and it has a terrific. I'll tell you what the book is about, what the title is, and all that. This book has a very close personal history of my family. So it is basically, if you look at the picture, it's a man with a bicycle. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And what the title of the book is Du Chaka Hai Duniya.
Yeah.
So it means Do Pahiye Mein Duniya.
World on two wheels, yeah.
World on two wheels. And it is written by a gentleman called Bimal Mukherjee.
Yeah.
Now, he is not a relative of my family, although he is also a Mukherjee. But this man, along with 3 other of his friends, had left. Our roots are in Ranchi in Jharkhand.
Yes, sir.
Dhoni city.
Yeah,
Okay?
Dhoni city.
So they had left Ranchi on bicycle to tour the world. Along with them, my grandfather's elder brother had gone along with them. Okay, he was one of the 4 bicyclists, and they had reached Europe bicycling all the way from India and into Europe, where my great grandfather he was in Europe when the Second World War happened, and then he married a German lady and he moved off to Brazil. Whereas this gentleman, Bimal Mukherjee, he went on to tour many other places and he came back to India. But my great grandfather, he never returned to it. He lived in Brazil and he died in Brazil. Many years now. And he died sometime late 70s, last century. So I'll quickly tell you what this book is about, and it will perhaps give you some idea. Let me just find a quick spot, okay?
Yes, sir.
I'll just read out the blurb, which will give an idea to whoever is understanding Bengali. They will understand.
Even I understand Bengali, sir.
How so?
Actually, I spent my 8 years, so 3rd language is Bengali of mine, so I can understand it completely.
Oh, lovely. Then you will understand that very well.
Yes,
okay.
Sir.
Let me just read out the first part. 1926 সালে সাইকেলে পৃথিবী পর্যটন বেরিয়েছিলেন বিমল মুখার্জি. He was born in 1903 and he died in 1987. এর আগেই 1921 থেকে 26 সালে সাইকেলে ভারত ভ্রমণ শেষ করেছেন. নামমাত্র অর্থ এবং অজানা জগতের প্রবল আকর্ষণ সম্বল করে বিশ্ব ভ্রমণে বেরিয়ে পড়েন বিমল মুখার্জি. আরব, ইরান, সিরিয়া, টার্কি, ব্রিটেন, আইসল্যান্ড, নরওয়ে, সুইডেন, ফিনল্যান্ড, রাশিয়া, গ্রিস, ইজিপ্ট, সুদান, ইটালি, সুইজারল্যান্ড, ফ্রান্স, ডেনমার্ক, জার্মানি, US, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Hawaii দ্বীপ, Japan, China, Hong Kong, Vietnam, all these countries. So I'll stop here, but you can imagine this book is a treasure trove of history, and it is not history far removed from my family. It is partially my family's history as well. So I'm very proud of this book. It is no longer available, unfortunately. And well, there you are.
Yeah. So it seems that Bimal Mukherjee is just like Vasco da Gama from Kolkata, who really traveled the half of the world on 2 weeks.
Yeah, actually, I mean, the gentleman, after my great-grandfather, they parted ways in Europe, and my great-grandfather stayed back. He married that German lady, and then they moved to Brazil later on.
Yes,
but Bimal Mukherjee, and there was one other person who carried on for the rest of the journey. So that's how. And then he came back and he wrote this book.
Like they were on a big voyage on bicycles for long.
Several years.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it started in 1926.
Yes, sir.
And between 21 and 26, they had done the India journey.
Oh, that's great.
And then after the Second World Tour, then he comes back in 1937.
Oh.
So 11 years, 1926
years.
to 1936.
Yes, sir. And like since like we have this quarantine again and people are again bound to sit at home and count on their days. So like what are the books that are on your summer's reading list? Like what are the books you will be reading now since summer and we are quarantine again back?
So currently I'm reading Obama's A Promised Land. So I'm on the last 1/4 of the book now. It's an amazing read. I have why don't I just show you? Give me a second and I'll show you the books that are there in my list.
That would be lovely to see your library.
These are the books that I already have ready.
So we get an insight into your collection of your books. That is really very pleasant for all the viewers. And we didn't expect this, but we are getting an insight into your books. Yeah.
So this is one.
Sapiens.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sapiens.
Yuval Noah Harari. Then the sequel of that book, Homo Deus.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
And this is one very unusual book. Blood Telegram. This deals with the 1971 India-Pak War.
Okay.
And these are from the US archives of the diplomatic mails and all that were being written by the people in the US embassies and the consulates in the country back to the US. So, with the intelligence and all that, so what was going on. It's a third perspective, not just the Indian perspective. It's a third perspective. So it's supposed to be extremely interesting. There are a couple of other books. I'm very fond of reading humor. So another author that I'm very fond of is Tom Sharp. So there is another book of Tom Sharp that I've just bought. It's The Wilt. Wait a second.
Just wait for a couple of minutes till Sir brings more and more books to us to view. Yeah, Tom Sharp. Yeah.
Yeah, so this one. It's a hilarious book, but very different from the kind of humor that Woodhouse wrote. Woodhouse wrote very gentle humor.
Yes.
Tom Sharp's humor is extremely cutting. It's satirical. It's black humor. So humor has various categories. Black humor, but extremely. I tend to laugh out aloud when I'm reading Tom Sharp because he's so good.
So like from your collection, it's no two ways that your next book is about terrorism, because like you are into that, what we say, adventure and thrill and whatnot. So
see, I'm a very eclectic reader. I read a lot of history. I read Akbar very recently. So let me just show you quickly. It will be a little bit of lift.
Yes, sure, sir. So this is a library, sir. The time small.
These are the books that I am currently into.
Okay.
But my main collection is in a different room. I can't hold them here in the bedroom.
No, it's okay, sir. Even this is enough for the audiences.
It goes on like that.
It's a 5-story rack. Yeah, full of books.
It's packed. I don't have any more space now.
Yeah, it's packed. Yes, sir.
So Akbar is a terrific book that I just read.
Mm-hmm.
I read a lot of, I've read the entire Mughal, but this is the easy reading Mughal series by Alex Rutherford.
Yes, sir.
I read a lot of Ken Follett. Ken Follett I like. And this one is by an author called Con Eagledon and Ben Kane. Now, Con Eagledon and Ben Kane, they have written a lot of books on Roman and on Hannibal. Ben Kane has written on Hannibal, the general who challenged Rome, and also Spartacus, the slave who had challenged Rome.
Yes, sir.
So these are historical, but these are easy to read form. I mean, almost like historical novels. I also read a lot of biographies. One of the other favorite book author that I have is Amitabh Ghosh in Indian writing.
Yes.
He's a fantastic writer. So I have his Ibis trilogy. I finished the last book very recently, Flood of Fire.
Oh, Flood of Fire, yeah.
So so at the moment I'm reading 3 books. So I read multiple books at the same time. So Barack Obama, and I'm reading a spy thriller as well.
Yeah.
Written by a British author, and that's on Kindle. And there is also another book on Kindle by John Updike called Rabbit is Rich. Now that is I'm part of a book club. So we assign ourselves books and we read. So Rabbit is Rich is an assigned book that I'm reading for this month. And amongst all this reading, also to find time to write, it's very challenging. It's absolute good fun.
So like you are a reading buff. I can see that. Like you love reading.
Oh yeah. I can't do
totally.
Without it.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yes.
I mean, if it is 2:00 in the morning and I'm about to go to bed, I still need to read. I cannot do without it.
Okay, so like you are the one who reads stories to bed, so that like anytime, given the time, you can read a book, right? So like since you are also a very good author and writer, since I've read few of your books, so sir, just tell me that what is the best thing about being a writer? The most enjoyable thing that you enjoy being an author and a writer?
That is a real tough one.
Yeah, tough question, but you can easily answer that.
See, I don't know about the easily part, but I can definitely try to answer that.
Yes,
now, see, being an author, what really I can, like I was telling you, that what I like particularly is telling a story. Now, whether that story is inspired from real life, like the Station Master, or it has completely come out of my brain, like Off the Pages or Rico, it is something that I'm narrating and I'm actually visualizing that. So this act of visualizing a scene and then putting it down on paper, hoping that the reader also gets the same, imagery that I'm getting while I'm writing. So a lot of review comments that I keep getting from readers is that, it's a very visual language that I use. So it's what I take from that is that, readers are able to visualize what I'm trying to write. So if that is the case, that is something which really is very satisfying. And personally, what I particularly like is a story which is conveyed in the way that I want to convey. And it's without doing any compromise on the storyline. I'm conveying the story in the right form. The very act of saying that is something that I like.
And so like since you love the transition from this normal world to another world, and then that's what the best thing you love about writing. So like there are many books that have been adapted to movies and they have been played in big screen. So like which is your favorite adaptation that has been adapted from a book onto the big picture, big screen? So which you like the most? Like which book that has been filmed into the big picture? One of your favorite, like anyone?
I can tell you a few. I mean, it's very difficult to really say which is the best adaptation.
Yeah.
I tend to like the books better than the movies. But there are some adaptations which have been extremely good. So Lord of the Rings comes to mind very strongly.
Yes, sir.
The adaptations, The Hobbit. I mean, The Hobbit has been really pumped up to become a series of 3 books, because originally the book itself is a slim volume. It's not a very long story. They have expanded that and kept the viewers hooked with its visuals and all that. So I particularly like them. There are a series of the Sherlock Holmes adaptations that happened, which had in the past. It used to be on BBC. I'm forgetting the name of the actor. Jeremy Brett. Jeremy Brett was the actor who played Sherlock Holmes. I have seen the original stories as they appeared in the Strand magazine, which was where Sherlock Holmes stories were first published. And there were woodcut images drawn of the detective as described by the author. Jeremy Brett actually looks like those images.
Oh.
So he was so accurately appropriate. I loved their adaptations. They were true to the story as they were written. And I also loved the adaptation of the character in the one which recently was made with Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yes, sir.
So you must have seen that.
Yeah. We all youngsters are a big fan of that. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm sure you would have. And they were brilliant adaptations. Although initially I was kind of, wondering whether they would be serious to the story, but they have done a beautiful spin on those stories. I loved them. And the other one, which I'll quickly also mention, and you'll notice I'm talking about all Western movies. Yes. I'll try and come back with some Indian. The one which I particularly liked was The Day of the Jackal, which is again a book written by one of, again, my favorite authors, Frederick Forsyth. It was made way back in the early 70s, The Day of the Jackal, and I found that adaptation to be almost letter perfect in terms of the book and the movie. There was hardly any discrepancy. And okay, I mean, that was not the last. Another one I remembered is another of my old favorite authors called Alistair MacLean. So his stories were adapted into movies in the 70s and 80s. One of them was Where Eagles Dare in the 60s, and that was brilliantly made. Apparently, it was he who had written the screenplay as well. So that book was very, very well transcribed. It was almost as if the book was written for the.
So like from your talks, so like all of your favorite writers are quite vintage and very fine authors. And so are you, because your idols are such fine authors. So like it was really great having you with us. And like towards the end,
I have one other thing I must tell you. Let's see, yes, the authors that I keep quoting are slightly in the past, but there are a bunch of new authors that I'm reading. Yes, and they are very good. I mean, there's not to say that those authors are not good at all.
Yeah.
And I'm writing in that era, so I better be competing with them.
Yes,
so they're good as well.
Yeah. So like towards the end, I have one very cliche question that you have heard everywhere, that any piece of advice that you would like to say to the young aspiring writers. Even I also love to write. So any piece of advice that you would like to give to us, the young generation, who will be watching. Yeah.
Sure. See, I'll tell you this. The advice that I can tell you is that if you're writing professionally, I mean, if you're writing for pleasure, keep writing. But if you're writing professionally, it's a very, very tough world. So get into this with your eyes open.
Okay.
And don't give up. If you know that you have writing ability inside you, you believe that, you believe in your talent, don't give up, because the initial part is extremely rough. It's extremely tough to break into.
Yes, sir.
I'll not say I'm a successful author. No, not at all. I'm still struggling. And it's only 4 years that I have taken to writing. But the fact of the matter remains that you cannot give up on your dreams. So if you believe that you have that talent in you, go ahead and build it.
Okay. So that was really very, very precious piece of advice. And I would really like to inculcate that, and will never give up, and will pass on to other people also.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So like initially, I was very nervous because I have read about you and you have written 3 books, and this is my second interview. So I was really nervous, but you made me like comfortable. It felt like home, as if I know you, and it's just like one of my faculties, and this is same.
Oh, wonderful. I'm feeling happy about that.
Yeah. So like, thank you so much, sir, for sparing such valuable time and giving us this time. And I hope that I can also interview in future. And so thank you for your time, and it was lovely talking to you and having you for TED Weekend Conversations.
Sure. Thank you so much.
And sir, keep writing and stay safe, and we'll wait for your 4th book that is based on terrorism. No more spoilers for the audience.
No, I intend to finish that this year, Hopefully it should be out in 2022. And I hope I'll get the same kind of, passionate readers that have been reading my books. It's a pleasure.
So you have one more edition. That's me. I will be also reading your fourth book with full passion, sir.
Please do. Thank you so much. If you've read the others,
Yeah.
why don't you tell me how you like them when you have some time?
Yes, sir. I read the last one of the pages and I was really blown away because it was a new concept that how come a character can turn on the writer, that why did you design my life like that? So that was really amazing, sir. And you came up with a new storyline that was different and that can really engage the young generation as well. So, sir,
Sure.
fourth book, and thank you so much, sir. And sir, towards anything that you would like to tell, that how was your experience and did you enjoy this conversation? Anything?
I love it. So, you get me to talk about books at 4 in the morning, I'll do that. Because that's something that I live for. Whether it is about reading or it is about writing, you tell me, I'll be thrilled to bits.
Yeah.
On 21st, I have another session with a school. They're going to be talking about writing and all that. I'm all excited already. I'll get a chance to talk about books. So I love it. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that this is only your second interview. You came across as someone that has interviewed many people, probably.
No, so this is my
second. Good job.
And so I was very lucky that I got to interview you. And so I am just doing my post-graduation and I'm from chemistry. So literature,
chemistry.
I love it.
Okay.
Yeah, yes.
Right.
And so I have read Bengali literature a lot. So that's why, and when I heard about your surname, I was very lucky to interview a Bengali author. And that interview. So I really loved it, sir. And thank you for making it feeling like.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. But absolutely.
Same from my side as well, sir. Thank you so much, sir. And have a nice day and stay safe, sir. Thank you, sir.
You too. Stay